Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. My name is ToxicSpill, and I have finally returned to YouTube. It's been forever. I am sorry. It's completely my fault. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, with StarCraft 2 not being updated in what feels like 100,000 years, we are going to be doing a ranking, very similar to the previous ranking video, which has mixed results on the channel. That video is simultaneously my most liked and disliked video on the channel, which is impressive to say the least. Now, in that video, I want to make a couple corrections because I have been bombarded by the comments section about two major things. One, I did not include prestige ranks on purpose. The second thing is that Kerrigan got f***ed. Please don't search it up on Google. Please. Don't. But like anything creative that really anyone makes, you obviously see the imperfections once the thing is done. And that definitely was one of the major things looking back on. I think it was a little bit too harsh. I think she definitely deserves to be mid-tier ranking, not low-tier ranking. Definitely not high-tier for the reasons that I go on in the video. But anyways, enough dwelling about the past. If you absolutely love the video, if you love the content, hell, if you love me, be sure to scroll down below and hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all of the content coming your way. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's rank some missions, shall we? Alright, so out of all 15 missions here, which by all means doesn't sound like a lot, but when you actually play the game, it is a lot more. Definitely much better in game than on paper. But we start out number one with a more controversial one right off the bat. I know, already off to a great start with the Chain of Ascension. Now, the Chain of Ascension is honestly a very interesting one because it introduces a sort of tug of war objective to a game, which you don't really see too often. This one definitely requires a little bit more teammate coordination, so having an ally that's actually participating in the game is very essential because you literally cannot move the objective without your ally, which is a problem a bit at the time. This, of course, isn't all positive because the downsides exist very well, and this is the controversial part. There are hybrids, and I've already made a video on the channel. There's a link at the top of the screen right now to why I hate hybrids and showing off just how evil they are. Now, these hybrids in this level normally show up in around mid to late game for most levels, but this level, is such an exception. They show up early game, and three of them, these are like potentially army killers, and they show up in the beginning of the game. It's complete and utter bullshit. So if you're not playing a commander that is extremely aggressive, which you naturally need on this map. So for that reason alone, I would honestly say that while the Chain of Ascension is fun, it definitely depends on the commanders that you bring to the field heavily, because if you can't output that damage, you can't hold back the duel, and you just instantly lose. So I would say Chain of Ascension definitely, as goes for a level, as goes for overall difficulty and fun, I would say it's maybe an I would say it's definitely a B tier. If the early game hybrids didn't exist, then I wouldn't have a problem. It definitely would be A tier. Second up, we have the Cradle of Death. You shut down a Mobius core base by using artifact trucks to then shut down these giant turrets. You place the artifact trucks on both points, and then they blow up that entire section of the map. So much like the Chain of Ascension, what's great about this level is that the base expansion is literally opened up by playing the first objective, which is pretty awesome. Now, the overall mechanic of this, of course, as I mentioned before, is those artifact trucks bringing that giant crystal ball on their backs to then disable these turrets to make them vulnerable to attack. But sometimes you're going to be facing more than two turrets at once because you and your ally each get a single truck, which means that basically they get free range to shoot at whatever. Now, this, of course, normally isn't a problem if you can output the damage, but if you can't, you're going to have a pretty bad time, especially if your army is large in size. They spread out, your artifact truck can't cover all that area, and then they get promptly gunned down because they do that much damage. So I would say, while the Cradle of Death, playing the objective itself is relatively easy, but with the attack waves being relatively relentless, I would honestly say that the Cradle of Death definitely belongs. I would say it's A tier. It's a fun level overall, but again, it can be annoying at times. Ladies and gentlemen, this one might be controversial, but I don't care. This is my video anyways, and it is, of course, you can tell by the picture here, the huge swarms of undead swarming bunkers of guns is the dead of night. And I'm gonna say this, and it might get lit up in the comment section, the best and most entertaining level in all of StarCraft 2, automatically going in S tier. Now this, of course, now I probably need to explain myself on this one. So it's a very simple objective to understand. You have your bases in the middle, no expansions at all. You just get one big base with tons of harvesters. During the daytime, you will go out and destroy structures that will spawn undead. And overall, running through the enemy during the daytime is relatively easy. At night, however, these structures that when left alive will spawn waves of the undead to then, or undead or infested, I call it the undead, to then swarm on your base from all angles, which is very cinematic and very fun with defensive commanders. Fun fact, this level is actually used for XP farms because defending is relatively easy when you have the commander for it, and so you can play it on the higher difficulties when you prestige the commander or even when you're starting out, and you can get a huge amount of XP from this level. Next, we have lock and load. You do need teammate coordination with this level because obviously you can only capture with you and your ally, but you need, of course, fast response units, whether it's through deep tunneling, overall fast movement speed, transport, teleportation, whatever. You need something that moves fast because with enemy attack waves coming from all angles, and while it is great that they cannot prioritize on your base most of the time, they are able to capture those objectives once you have captured them, or even capture them when you haven't. So I would say for a relatively easy objective overall, the bonus objective is literally nothing because by the time it comes online and everything, you can be bulldozed relatively easy by literally anything. Attack waves are pretty relentless, but the overall level is easy. I would say this definitely belongs in, I would say it's B tier. Because it's not a super fun level by any means, but it's relatively easy. The Mal Warfare. You protect a giant drone as it is basically disabling an entire facility as you are being attacked by holograms that by all means still do physical damage, don't ask me how that happens, against you and your ally. I could say a lot of things about this level, but the first thing I gotta say about this level in particular is that the bonus objectives are such so their positions are okay, they're not crazy, they're a little out of your way, but not drastically. The main problem is that you have to pay for them. You have to pay minerals and Vespian gas just to complete them. So I would say that while the objective itself is relatively easy when you have a big enough army, the punishment for losing said army plus the bonus objective, I would say this definitely belongs in the C rank. Next up, judging by the giant transport and the time over it, is of course a minor evacuation. Now, the actual point of this level is really fun because it introduces a very heavy mobile defense where there will be objectives, not always spawning in the same areas all the time, where you'll have to defend these transports from, of course, the onslaught of attack waves coming at you, which is extremely fun because it allows aggressive armies and defensive armies to play relatively well. The overall enemy variation is relatively limited, and beyond getting past major defenses and the final like 2 objectives where they'll throw hybrid at you, actually defending on this level is actually really easy. The objective is easy, but the bonus objectives aren't great, so I would say this definitely belongs in A tier. I think this definitely is a really fun level overall, but of course it is not perfect because those bonus objectives are really far removed. Missed opportunities. I would say there's one little thing that I really like though, is that with the addition of Egon Stedman as an actual playable commander, the level actually adjusts its audio. So Stedman as the commander is talking, not as the commentator for it, which I mean, it's nothing gameplay, but it's just, you know, it's the little details. It's the little details that make it.
Okay, Gary, you can open your eyes now. Surprise! I brought you back to Beelcher for your birthday. This is where you were born. And since we're here and my terrazine supplies are low, why don't we harvest some more? It'll be fun. I'll even let you help.
This level overall is overwhelmingly easy because defenses are practically nothing across basically the entire map. So much so that you will, at the end of the map, there's like this huge enemy base, practically strands from the entire end of the map. And frequently you will find yourself wiping out that map because there's just no more enemies to fight. And you have so much of a force that you're just like, you know what? I just want to kill all these enemies. Cuz. The drones, however, are very, 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 very stupid. They don't stop moving. They have a barrier, which is only active for a couple of seconds. It can take a couple of bits of damage, and that's about it. So I'd say overall with the easy objectives, very easy bonus objectives, and the only real threat to you, of course, is attack waves, I would say this definitely belongs in the A category. Arguably S. But I would say definitely the A category. Next up, we have Oblivion Express. Now, I've already made a video about how broken this level is when you play Minsk and you literally just put artillery. I'll put a link to that at the top of the video right now. So your base is in the middle. Trains are flowing through. They are relatively close to your base, so reinforcing your army, attacking these trains is relatively easy. They will eventually come, of course, with escorts of units, obviously. And then this, of course, is a super defensive level, but you can also use aggressive armies as well. You can set up checkpoints of huge defenses, or even go full artillery with Minsk in that video that I mentioned. The other way you can do it is aggressive army that literally swarms the train. Literally like water on a wall, just flows onto it, covering it entirely, and then just tearing it apart piece by piece. The only real negative thing I can really say about this level is that the attack waves that come at your base are a little much and everything, especially occasionally the trains will spawn hybrids, much to literally no one's amusement. This belongs, I would say, in S tier, because you can use every commander on this level. Actually, I would say it actually ranks higher than that. While this one's a good XP source, the Oblivion Express is really good for literally any commander, whether you're playing defensively, offensively, structures, units, in large numbers or in small numbers. It doesn't matter. You'll do well on this map. Next up, we have Part and Parcel, where you build a giant mech to take on a big monster. There's a lot of anime vibes from this one. And while the commentator is relatively annoying, she's not only an eyesore, but she's an ear sore as well. Like, good lord. Basically, you break crates. Crates have parts, parts build mech. Mech goes to fight big monster. Mech, of course, is useless, which is kind of counterproductive when you see the sheer guns on this thing. And then your army, of course, has to do the heavy lifting, fighting said big monsters. Relatively easy to understand. You need to be relatively fast in the beginning. Having slow commanders like Swan or Karax is generally not that advisable because you need to act quickly. The boss fight itself is actually pretty good, all things considered. It's a relatively tanky boss, and while the first objective might be a little much because you might not have a big enough army, actually fighting these things is relatively fun because even when you have a huge army, it still requires some skill. It's not like you just send them to them and boom, that's it. They just die after some time. You actually need to maneuver your armies because they have some pretty high damaging attacks and can delete your units relatively easily and even shut down portions of your army. But again, for the giant mech being utterly useless, and the actual layout of the map can be really annoying at times, especially with certain hybrids and units around, and it being relatively well defended. And while the concept is cool, the actual mechanics of the level is annoying. Honestly, I'm gonna say this goes in the B tier. This isn't a great map. Now, ladies and gentlemen, taking it back home to the home of the Terran Dominion, at least I think so, is Core Hall, where we are going to talk about the Rifts of Core Hall, as you can see by this giant sort of tablet in the ground. Now, Rifts of Core Hall is relatively easy to understand. There's these giant shards implanted in the ground. They're apparently gonna detonate or whatever, and they're gonna blow up and massive loss of life, you understand. You, of course, need to destroy these things. And while they can't defend themselves, the actual enemies beyond the first shard is relatively well entrenched, especially when you talk about the final objective, which is just armed to the teeth. So many hybrids and so many huge units. Carriers and Tempest if you're fighting Protoss. You know, you've got Brood Lords if you're facing Zerg, and you've got tons of battle cruisers with their stupid Yamato cannons, which delete any unit they touch, which is just bullshit. So in general, I would say that the Rifts of Korhal, it's an okay map. It's not super fun, but then again, I would say definitely belongs in the B tier. It's an overall okay level, but again, the enemies on the map are super relentless. The attack waves are pretty frequent. You know what, actually, with the attack waves, no, you're going down to C category. Suck it. Next up here, we have the Scythe of Aemon. The Scythe of Aemon is, well, very heavily linked to the story. So, what's great about this level is that you can be quick to win. What I mean by that is that you can, assuming you're able to build up an army big enough, you can advance on objectives way sooner. You're not limited to like a time before they activate. They're literally all activated. Every time you kill one, it gives you more time to then kill the next one. Very, very simple to understand. Now, the bonus objective for this, which is evacuating Protoss civilians, is a little janky. Now, the reason why it's a little janky is because the transport flies over areas, of course, that are defended, and you need to clean out, right? As you'd expect. The issue is, the areas it flies over, if you have not cleared out those areas preemptively, actually end up flying over enemy defenses, and they get shot down literally right before they even get to the area that they would normally be shot down, which is just annoying. And the spots are really annoying, especially the second spot to the third spot is just covered in defenses. So if you haven't advanced up, say bye to the bonus objective. So I would say overall, I would say this belongs in D tier. Overall, this level is a little annoying with the objective, especially the spawn points and those little shards that delete your army. Generally not fun to play against. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in this entire ranking, I've definitely been a little bit more biased towards the defensive levels. And while it's true that the defensive levels are a little bit, at least, more easier as it goes for the enemies, because they have to come to you, this level here, ladies and gentlemen, down here, is the exception, which is the Temple of the Past. And while in the campaign, the reason why this level even exists, is a really fun level with an awesome cinematic. Now, in Structure to Dead at Night, it's relatively similar, right? You know, you're besieged on all four sides, defend the middle. Very simple. Except for the fact that you're facing super hard-hitting enemy attack waves. Drop pods will drop behind all of your defenses and attack the objective or your base. The bonuses are inside of enemy lines, and just to top it all off, just like a cherry on top, giant void spawn will spawn at the end of all these like really long lanes that will bombard your objective, which means you need to leave your defenses behind. So honestly, with the annoyances of basically everything about the level, I would honestly say that this is probably our first F. I don't put it there lightly. Like, it's not a great level. It's not a great level. I don't really have much to say positive. And we have, arguably, the worst level to ever exist in StarCraft 2, which is the Vermilion problem. Hold on. This list is wrong. Hold on. And just like that, justice is now served. There isn't really much to say. This level sucks. Second last, we have Void Launch. Now, Void Launch is, I would honestly say this is one of the best levels. The actual level is relatively easy. You shoot down giant transports trying to run away. Right? Very simple. What's great about this level is that you could take advantage of the mechanics of the level. See, the enemy bases at the far end of the map, right? They obviously spawn the transports and along with the enemies around them. After that, you can quite literally take engineers or units and then literally just build anti-air defenses all around the structure, so quite literally as soon as they pop up, they die right away. So I think this definitely belongs in S tier. The final one, of course, is Void Thrashing. Now, Void Thrashing is taking a little bit of idea from the Temple of the Past, but making it better. So the Void Thrashers that spawn on the end of the sort of lines to which the enemy comes in the Temple of the Past is the objective. Now, they work the exact same way. They bombard the objective at long range, and then they stop bombarding to destroy anything within close range. Their attacks you can avoid unless you have a super huge army, then obviously there's going to be acceptable casualties. It's a very fast level in the sense that it can actually be completed in like 15 minutes, which is kind of crazy. The spawning rate of them is entirely dependent on how fast you kill the previous objective, rather than the game time itself. However, the only thing I will say about this level is much like the Rifts of Korhal, the final objective is armed to the teeth. Not only are you dealing with 4 of these huge Void Thrashers that are able to, again, almost insta-kill anything within close range, but there are so many defenses, so many units inside of them, plus the attack waves are still coming at your base. So again, overall, as it goes for this level, it's fun. It's definitely not top tier. We need to make that clear. It is definitely not top tier of a level at all. It's definitely not low tier, especially with the Vermilion problem. But I would say it belongs... I'm gonna put it with C, because it's very reminiscent of the Rifts of Korhal, except it's got basically the Temple of the Past level enemies, which is understandable. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the list. Overall, I think I'm really happy with it, especially the last one. I think it deserves to be down there. But this here is my ranking of all of the missions of co-op. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have watched to the end of this video, I thank you. Your time is irreplaceable, and the fact that you have spent it watching this video truly means the world to me. Now, ladies and gentlemen, leave in the comments below what you thought of this tier list and where do you think you would rank it. Did I do anything wrong? Did I do anything right? Would you make any changes? Leave it below in the comments. Now, with all this being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I promise to upload more. And with all this being said, this is Toxic Spill. If you absolutely love the video, make sure to subscribe. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I will see you all in the next one. And just remember, do what you love. Take care. Bye-bye.